What's up, true believers? We're back with another spoiler review, and this time we'll be covering the universe, the Noir universe, with Spider-Man Noir and reading up on his origin story and his first adventure. Before we get into it, please leave a like, follow, subscribe, share this with your friends. If you follow me on YouTube or Odyssey, especially, definitely follow me on my Twitter. All links are in the description. And yeah, let's begin. I find it hard to not hear Nicolas Cage in this guy's dialogue. Excuse me, especially after Spider-Verse came out. But if you watch on my YouTube channel my complete walkthrough Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, where that is one of my favorite games in the world, you know, second only to Spider-Man PS4, where you get to play 4 different universe Spider-Man, and one of them is Spider-Man Noir. And in that game, he's voiced by the 90s Spider-Man, Christopher Barnes, who voiced Spider-Man in the 90s TV series, which I completely reviewed each season of 90s Spider-Man, which is up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. And of course, you got Neil Patrick Harris, who voiced the 616 Spider-Man. You got the voice actor for Spectacular Spider-Man voicing Ultimate Spider-Man, which I will eventually get around to, because the next Spider-Man TV show I'm reviewing is the MTV Spider-Man, which Neil Patrick Harris voiced there. Then the Spectacular Spider-Man right afterwards. So yeah, and you got for 2099 Spider-Man in that game, he's voiced by the actor who voiced him in the 70s Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. So it was No Way Home before No Way Home, and that's why I freaking loved it. Just getting all these people. That's the one, slight caveat I wish No Way Home actually get these voice actors involved in the film in some little capacity, just to have, like, just a huge love letter to Spider-Man. Oh, it would have been great just to hear like, a dispatcher with the voice of the Spectacular Spider-Man, or having Neil Patrick Harris show up in a coffee shop, or Christopher Daniel Barnes, as something like a janitor at the school or something. Like, who knows? Just get these guys involved, and it's like, oh my god, people just will love that. Will lose their freaking mind. That's what I would have done. But I still love it. But I was saying, like, that would have been like just icing on that massive cake. But anyway, this universe is set during like the 1930s. I think like 1933. And not too long after the First World War, and just several years shy from the second one that's going to be we know is going to occur. So the past, like, slightly different from what we know, and that's why I got my display up with, instead of the normal red and blue when I usually do these Spider-Man reviews. I think it's kind of ideal to have a kind of black and white is, color palettes, swirling behind me, because I only wish we have, like, some kind of smooth jazzy kind of tones playing, a very slow jazz kind of playing, but don't want to get like a in trouble for that here on Twitch. but you just kind of like want to like set the mood because this is kind of like that kind of thing, very speak and like yeah, saying like big palooka, like let's dance, like put 'em up, that kind of, I know it's kind of like cartoony, but it's just kind of like set the tone. But anyway, in this universe is set in the 1930s, and of course we see a the dead body of J. Jonah Jameson in his office, and there sitting on his table or squatting on the table is Spider-Man Noir in his glory and the whole trench coat. And I love his outfit. It's so like of that era where it's just like just like because I love noir stuff. I love mysteries, and it just gets you in that kind of mood. It's kind of like Blade Runner, but take away the futuristic stuff elements out of it. And of course, the cops assume that oh Spider-Man killed J. Jonah Jameson, take him out, and of course he flies out not fly, but he swings out the window and gets clipped, and he goes to like a hideaway to nurse his wounds. Then you flash back a couple of weeks to where it all started, and you for the first couple of issues, you're following this universe's Ben Urich, who is not only a reporter, but he's also a photographer of the Daily Bugle. And he happens to, he's doing like an expose on, the people who are down on their luck, and it's like, like I want to say like when did the Great Depression start? But it's kind of like in that vein where it's like, poverty, and people like are just, mostly have nowhere to go. And one guy, some old kooky guy, really is keeping warm by having like the Daily Bugle papers strapped underneath his clothes. And it's like, I got the sports section in my shoes, and I use the financial stuff to wipe my keister. But then Urich happens upon Aunt May, who's like, kind of fighting, the cause for like, the civil liberties for the people and everything like that. She's a rebel rouser. And of course, not too far from her is Peter Parker. And throughout this 4-issue run, the kid has a complete chip on his shoulder, because it wasn't too long ago that his Uncle Ben had died, and he blames not only the city, but but the Goblin, who's pretty much like you get a lot of feel from not only the Batman Begins, but also kind of like Long Halloween, also, who's aping off of Godfather, where it's like everybody's mobbed up, paid off, corrupted to corrupted all to all hell. And it's kind of like Batman Year One. This is kind of like Spider-Man Year One, but in the like 30s. And like everybody's bought and paid up. It's like, as Gordon would put it, in a town this bad, who's there to rat to anyway? It's kind of like that, which is why I'm digging this so much. And of course, then you get this universe's enforcers. We got Fancy Dan, Ox, and who's the third dude? um, Montana. And of course, Peter intervenes to keep them off his aunt, and he starting beating the crap out of him until like Yurik intervened, and it's like, smile boys, and takes a picture. And it's one of those old school cameras with the big globe, not globe, but disc, a dish thing with the light bulb inside. You usually find them in a museum or antique store. You know what I mean? And of course, now they got the pictures taken of them roughing up, uh, the poor, and it's not gonna look good and everything like that. And of course, Ox was just about to wail on this guy, but Fancy Dan intervenes like, no, he's good, leave him alone. And of course, then Yurik is, decides to take, May and Peter home, and he then decides to take after they drop May off because she's going to bed. He decides to take Peter to this speakeasy called the Black Cat, being ran by a former lover of Yurik's, Felicia Hardy. This universe is Felicia Hardy. And he points out, your altruism, like, you want, the things that you want to do to, set things right, all this other stuff, it's gonna get you killed, kid. It's like, look over there. There's a judge, yeah, there's a police commissioner, and there's a mayor. Like I said, it's very like Batman Begins, like Falcone point out, the people in his establishment. And it's like, I got everybody bought and paid off, like, because everybody is owned by, is protected by the Goblin, which is this universe's Norman Osborn. There's a funny interaction between Peter and Felicia Hardy, where it's like, she asks him, "Are you old enough to drink here?" And he says, like, "I tell you what, I'll show you my birth certificate if you show me your liquor license." And Felicia's like, "Yurik, I like this kid." And I love that dialogue. That was a slick dialogue. It's like I'll show you my birth certificate if you show me your liquor license. That was really good. I really like that. So Yurik points out, people with the same ideals as Peter don't tend to last long in the city. Oh, and by the way, this is not the first Noir comic that I've reviewed. I also reviewed Luke Cage Noir last February, which you can check out on my YouTube channel as well, and I go over my thoughts on that one. And of course, here comes like Osborn strolling up to Yurik's table, and of course he's also joined by this universe's Craven the Hunter, or Craven, with a monkey on his shoulder. I guess it's kind of like a partner in crime. And then this universe's Vulture, who's more kind of like a ravenous. He's like got nearly no humanity left in him, so he's like, acting like a, he has got sharp teeth and everything like that. He's just like, a very lethal, one of the Goblin's most lethal henchmen. And then Goblin made offhanded comment about Peter's uncle. He is like, it's how unfortunate what happened to your uncle. I heard you always been causing problems. And Peter throws a glass of whiskey in his face, like, you're not fit to say his name. And of course, he stops everybody like, okay, like not here, not here. As you gotta teach your boy some manners, Yorick. And so Felicia has the kid tossed out on his butt, and she telling Yorick like, tell the kid he can come back when he grows up, because you can see like the kind of connections Goblin has, where it's like, you know, people like seriously fear him and what he can do. So we gotta, like, you know, all gotta stay on this guy's good side. It's kind of like the way, like, you know, how Kingpin was in Daredevil. It's like, you know, one wrong move, you can lose a head. But, you know, Jurg's plan was to scare the kids straight, because at this point, you know, people like Yurik just like got beaten down by this corrupt city, where it's like he's got to, like, you know, if he wants to, you know, you got to get along kind of situation. So this doesn't work. So he went with plan B and decides, okay, we can. He goes to the Daily Bugle and encourages Jonah to give the kid a job as essentially like an intern for Yurik, where he gets some coffee and holds his equipment. And as he goes, you know, on assignments with Yurik, he sees like all like the problems and like horrific stuff, you know, people go through every day. And this only further fuels the kid into wanting to do more. And so it's kind of having the opposite effect. He thought he can beat the kid's idealism down with some cynicism, but it only kind of like strengthens it. It's kind of funny that we don't get Steve Rogers in this, like Steve Rogers Noir, or just Captain America in general, because he would have been, because he fought in the 40s. He would be like, what, like in his early 20s, mid 20s, something like that. So here he should have been like, I don't know, let's say like I would say like maybe mid to late teens. And of course he's from Brooklyn and Peter Parker is from Queens, so I guess like they wouldn't have any kind of crossing of paths. But it's kind of weird that we don't get there has been no Captain America Noir. I thought that was pretty funny. It's like, you know, if anybody needs a noir, it's like Captain America is pretty essential to this, Cap and Bucky. But oh, there's also been like a X-Men noir, Iron Man noir, Punisher noir, which I want to get to each one of those, because the noir universe is very fun in my opinion. So after taking some pictures of this building being burnt down, and, you know, a lot of people are like, you know, getting homeless, they discover that, you know, one of the photos that is being developed, Fancy Dan is in the crowd, and Peter's like losing it, like, see, he got something to do with this apartment being burned down, because, like, you know, the people who own the building you know, is not getting much rent from these people that keep packing up in this building. So it figured like he can get, you know, better a better paycheck if just something accidentally happens. But of course they have no proof for that. But then you also discover that Yurik is also a heroin addict, and it's never, you know, certain when he started using, but you would assume it would have been around the time when he lost his idealism, and this is the only way to cope. But he was also present when, that's why he like took such a shine to Peter, is the fact that he was present among a Goblin and his cronies when they murdered Uncle Ben. In fact, it wasn't just murder. Goblin used Vulture to essentially cannibalize uh, Uncle Ben. But the story in the papers said that he was, torn up by rabid dogs, and that's what it was, what they was going with in the official records. One night, Peter comes into Urich's residence with like the late edition, and he discovers, only probably maybe like a few minutes after he took his next hit, and he discovers Urich, just days or just letting the drug take over, so he's not just with it. And of course this is kind of like this, puts like Peter in like just like, you, oh my god, Urich, really? Then the phone rings, Peter answers, and of course I guess it's the 30s, so very noir stuff, so there's like there's a tip, and it's like Urich guy's like an informant, and essentially Urich's like the deep throat, in this scenario. And of course Peter pretended to be him because Urich goes by the name Spider as his alias, just to avoid any type of obvious, like, okay, like no names. So he gets a tip that the Goblin's planning to unload some kind of shipment at the docks, and so Peter ends up going there trying to get like some hard evidence to put the Goblin and his cronies away for a long time. And of course, one of the crates, because the Goblins are into like occult stuff and other like artistic, oddities. One of them is some kind of crate holding this jar with like a spider. It's from Africa, some kind of assuming like a Nancy or something like that. And this secret jar, it has a container full of spiders that immediately start attacking Fancy Dan, and pretty much like, despite the others' efforts of getting the holes and washing all that stuff off, he was bitten to death. So while that commotion was going on, one spider managed to crawl his way up, because Peter's in the rafters at this point, and one of the spiders bit him, but instead of kind of killing him or whatever, he is like in like a mystical mindscape and talking to this giant like spider deity. It's kind of like with Spider-Man India, where his own little vision quest thing that he spoke with some kind of mystical entity. And this one, he decides to give Peter some great power because he sees something in him. So he ends up waking up in this cocoon thing of webs, and I like his version of the spider sense, because it comes off like the image of the spider totem on the jar, and it comes like a red kind of highlighted lines or some kind of aura. It's very cool looking. So now he has organic webbing. He you got agility, strength, that type of stuff. Of course, I forgot to mention that he didn't plan on getting like a actual job. He wanted to go to school for science, and of course Jonah's like, yeah, but school costs money, so yeah, you're hired, kid. So like he just kind of hired him on the spot. So now he's like, okay, now I can actually fight back, where like, I was no match before, but now I can actually fight back. So after the next day, after Yurik is trying to what do you call it, strong arm Osborn for I guess like more money, or I guess more, because he's a dope fiend, so he's trying to get more cash. He's got like all this kind of supposed dirt on Osborn. Osborn obliges because like like I admire the nerve, but don't get don't get too high and mighty now. But then it comes bursting Peter in like a mask, not the full-on Spider-Man Noir suit yet, but come bursting in and kicking a lot of people's butts. But he's trying to take on like Goblin, but he says like, well, the only way to stop me is to kill me, and you don't seem like the type of to do it, so because you would have done it immediately as you crashed through. And then he notices Yurik in the room, and he chases him down, and he says like, man, you're trash. You got bought. You got bought like a dog. He just respect you. And of course, Yurik quickly picks up like, Peter, like, I never want to see you again. And immediately after that, after like Goblin and his thugs come rushing down to fire at the guy, he gets away and tells Yurik that use his connections to try to figure out who that guy is, and so we can put a stop to that guy. But it was after this interaction where he kind of got a lesson of his own. Yurik, has a come to Jesus moment where it's like, man, this kid, is fighting tooth and nail to fight against an establishment that's like, treating not only him but a lot of people like garbage, and it's because of the Goblin for a large part, and his reach he has, a hold he has on the city. So he calls up Jonah and says, I got the scoop of the century, Jonah. Someone that can put away the Goblin for the rest of his life. But Jonah's like, I will get there. It's too dangerous for you to walk on the street with all that info. I'll come to you. And he pours himself a glass. He cheers to the window, and after he takes a drink, a knock comes at the door, and Yurik ends up getting shot to death. Very Noir kind of stuff. And it turns out it was Jonah who shot him. It's like, oh my god, like, Jonah. I was like, this is so Noir, it's so detective stuff. It's like, something you see like something like Blade Runner or something. It's so it's just really cool. I love it, man. And I like this like image in the Bugle where it kind of reminds me of Batman 89, where they got this kind of grotesque bat creature, because people don't have like a solid clue what Batman looks like. Same thing with Spider-Man Noir. They don't have no solid clue of what he actually looked like, so they went with like an artist rendition. So like, I thought it was pretty doggone funny. This is the first thing that came to mind when I saw this image. And so Spider-Man Noir, after he finally makes his classic costume out of materials from Uncle Ben's old WW1 uh uh you know uniforms and other garbs he wear because he was part of the Air Force. He put all that stuff together to make his costume. And he goes to Urich's place trying to get more info, despite him saying that he doesn't want anything to do with him. And he discovers his body, but he has to be the one. He had to call in, despite his ill feelings towards him. He was he still looked after him, and it's kind of like this is like he lost a second father figure in like a very short time frame. So as he's waiting out in the hallway at the police, doing their investigations and everything like that, you hear one of them whisper like, "Should we pin it on the kid?" No, he's the one that called it in. Besides, well, it kind of looks suspicious. So what does it say? He got done in by his dope dealer. So you can see like how many people was on the take at this point. Like you're pointing out that how many people like are in the Goblin's thrall, like the governor, the mayor, the police commissioner. So Peter gets informed by an associate of Felicia Hardy to come visit her at the Black Cat. He goes to her private quarters and she hands him a bunch of files and documents that Jurg left her to hand to him in case something happens to him. And she said, Jurg said you would know what to do with it. And he's Pete like, why can't we just take it to the Bugle? It's like, she told him straight up, that's the last place you want to go right now. So Peter took it upon himself, okay, I can just use this in order to take down the Goblin's operations one by one, because Jurg just has a lot of dirt on this guy that he can use to his full benefit. At Jurg's funeral, because after Jonah had some words with the Goblin, because he wanted all these files that Jurg supposedly had, but Jonah's like, hey, I turned that place upside down, couldn't find anything, nothing that is nothing that serious that will actually do anything to you. And he ordered Jonah to just talk with Peter because he was the only other person that's that close to him that might know. And of course, not very subtly, or subtly but not so subtly, at Ben's funeral, he walks over, it's like, hey, it's a darn shame about Jurg, and I know you two were close. Hey, didn't he happen to have any kind of like files or something he left behind? Peter's spider sense goes off the charts. It's like, man, my spider sense is going off. Maybe Felicia's right. Like, I can't trust Jonah. Even he's on the take too. And then so Peter lied. It's like, no, I honestly never told me anything. And so one by one, Peter starts taking down a lot of just kind of like Daredevil in the first season, taking down little by little of the Kingpin's operations, but like the Russians and the Yakuza and so forth, just to dismantle the operation. And then Ox one time, said like, boss, one night I saw that Parker kid go to Felicia Hardy's room at the Black Cat. Really, Ox? And that's like a great thing that you bring up to my attention now. It's like, it's like, because this dude's adult. So after reading one of like that awful slanderous stuff on the Daily Bugle, Spider-Man Noir goes try to pay Jonah a visit, knowing he has something to do with this. And he goes in, and this is where we end up in the first page. He ends up finding, Jonah's dead body. He's get fingered for the supposed murder because this Spider-Man carries a gun and a revolver. Of course, you don't see that in the animated movie for obvious reasons. Matter of fact, maybe other than the comics, other iterations of Spider-Man Noir, you don't see him with brandishing a gun for obvious reasons. Even though he was, because this dude's not no qualms of, taking it to a certain level. This is kind of like, he's very Batman-esque. Because it really doesn't do quips like that. He's like a hard-boiled kind of detective kind of attitude. Now, he goes to, after going through some of the files, he makes a discovery that puts him on the path back to the morgue to investigate Jonah's supposed corpse, because upon touching his face, it molds and deforms, and come to discover that this was this universe's chameleon, because the Goblin's henchmen are all part of different various circus acts. And that's why if you play the game, he's this whole thing about the whole freak show and everything like that. So he got his crew just coming from like different aspects of the circus. Because like Craven is like a wild animal tamer kind of thing, and Chameleon is the shapeshifter or like a master of disguise kind of thing. And he come to discover that Jonah has long since been kidnapped. He's never knew when this had happened. Probably like, even before Peter met with and got a job at the Bugle. And at this point, Goblin's cleaning the house. He's ordering, getting Parker and Black Cat, because they were close to Ben, but he sent the Vulture out to get Parker at his house while stalking Aunt May. Excuse me. All right, 1 second. Oh, come on.
At Domino's, you can get more than just amazing, delicious pizza. There's also lava cake,
sorry.
bites, and more.
That's stupid thing. Anyway, when Vulture is trying to attack Aunt May, it was Peter who managed to like get there, or at least Spider-Man Noir shows up brandishing the gun, and Vulture's like, wait, you say uh Like, oh, you're fast, Spider-Man, but are you fast enough before I snap this old lady's neck? And it's like, up here, the Spider-Man's like, nope. And he pulls out his gun, and of course, Iron Man's like, don't shoot. And the only thing like Spider-Man at that point is thinking about what this monster did to his Uncle Ben. After he figured out, like, he's the one that did the deed, and he just like shot him, riddled him with bullets, and and that was that in his mind. Of course, Aunt May just criticizing him. It's like, they say you shoot web out your wrist. You could have just webbed them up and woo woo. It's like, they're like, I get it, but it's like, in Spider-Man's mind, it's like, well, he killed Uncle Ben. And it's like, so for all his concern is just making sure he ain't touching any of his loved ones ever again. So he goes off to try to stop the Goblin at his hideout. Uh, I think it was like a meatpacking district or something like that. Yeah, meatpacking district. I know it wasn't crazy. It's usually a meatpacking district in these kind of things. That's why my brain immediately go to. I wasn't 100% sure in this context, but that's where my brain went because I watch movies like this, and it's usually a meatpacking district. And Felicia Hardy discovers J. Jonah Jameson alive, and he's in a cage, with a tiger in the next cage next to his. So now Goblin's trying to get some information out of Hardy because you must have told her something, and he's kind of right because the night Uric got killed by that fake J. Jonah Jameson, it was only a few minutes ago where he handed all that documents to Felicia Hardy, and she was in like a hiding away when he ended up getting shot by that fake. And that's how she knew, like, hey, don't trust the DW, do not go there, because she thought it was J. Jonah Jameson for real, not realizing it was just an imposter the whole time. And so Peter shows up and starts taking down Craven and Ox, because he's running out of henchmen at this point, but he still had that cage full of those spiders that was in that jar, and Peter kicked Craven into this thing, and all those spiders start consuming him, but not before he tricked Craven into shooting his own monkey by because the monkey's trying to attack him, and he's just like turned and put the monkey in Craven's line of fire and shot the thing. And and this gave Peter the opportunity to kick him into this box full of like spiders. But then he also has to go save Jonah from being attacked by the tiger that Osborn released. And so it's kind of fun to see like Spider-Man just wrestle this white tiger and shoot his mouth up full of like webbing. It was kind of like, it's kind of raw. But then it comes right down to Osborn and Spider-Man. It's usually like that. And then after like Goblin's trying to pull off his mask, Peter inadvertently, as he's trying to push his face away from him, trying to keep him from doing that, the his face starts peeling off, and he's come to discover that he has like a kind of like a skin disease that kind of makes him look like a goblin. That's where he, used the name. And of course, he's talking about, I'm not going to be put back in the cage like another freak show. Uh, uh, then he tried to shoot Peter Parker, but he webs up the gun. It explodes in the Goblin's hands, and of course, upon then, it's hard to say if the spiders were doing it or it's just like Kraven's semi-conscious body, still kind of like, you know, uh, with like, just some semblance of motion before he finally just uh bites the bullet, and he comes after Goblin, and and all those like spiders are swarming Norman, and they all fall into this uh like a reservoir or something where they drain the water, and they carry him off, and that's the last we see of Norman. uh Things get slightly better now that Goblin's hold on the city is like he's not there. His now it's kind of like after Kingpin got locked up in season 1, season 2 there's like a power vacuum kind of situation. And once you read other Spider-Man Noir stories, there's other bad guys that Peter will be dealing with. There's one story I remember. There is like when you deal with some Wakandans showing up on this kind of Indiana Jones adventure thing, which I want to read because I remember that being fun. I want to check that out again, because seeing like a Black Panther noir, that'll be fun, but not with T'Challa, but maybe like one of his like either great grandfather or grandfather being the Black Panther of that universe. That'll be fun. And so, just like with like Batman Begins or Batman Year One, Peter now this city's protector. He's decide he's gonna like make some give people some hope essentially. But this adventure is fun. Spider-Man Noir Universe is great. Highly recommend checking this out. This is like a great, as Nicolas Cage would put it in Spider-Verse. That's one hardcore origin story. This is one hardcore origin story. Great adventure. And matter of fact, I'm usually not an advocate on stuff being black and white. I like to watch things in color, but there's only a few rare occasions where I actually dig black and white kind of stories. There's one with like the Punisher that I liked, and I think the Noir universe, I like the art in this, and the drawing and the art. Second here. Uh, this was written by David Hine with collaboration with Fabrice Spalleski. Art by Carmine D. Giadamento. I might be butchering that, but I just want to point that out because the art in this is great, at least for this type of setting. But I think this could easily work in black and white. And the same thing with like it's kind of like Sin City. Same vibe. It can easily work in black and white. As one of the few rare cases where I advocate in, black and white kind of comics, or just depending, because I think noir kind of fits that mold than more so than anything else. But anyway, if you're watching this on Odyssey or YouTube, whichever platform you're following me on, and the links are in the description as well, let me know in the comments below. Like this, share this with your friends. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the Noir universe, what heroes you think can easily work in the Noir universe that you think is just like a no-brainer. Because I think like Captain America should be fun, and then Black Panther, I'd like to see that work in the Noir universe. But yeah, there'll be more stuff I want to do with the Noir universe. As a matter of fact, because I'm going to be going through a lot of X-Men stuff after I'm done with the Spider-Verse things in the foreseeable weeks. I want to, I'm going to be reading up a fair amount of X-Men stuff. I should put X-Men Noir on that list, because that, is something interesting that I never read before, and I want to check it out. But anyway, I will see you guys maybe a little bit later. I want to maybe hop into like a game or two. Probably just one game. We'll see which one. But if you follow me on Twitter, at Talkative Carl, you'll know when I'm live. And hop in and chat, with me. And yeah, the next Spider-Man comic I will be going through next week will be Spider-Woman Jessica Drew. So look forward to that. And yeah, and of course the MTV Spider-Man show I will be getting into as well. It only has one season, so I should get through that fairly quickly. And after that, it'll be Spectacular Spider-Man. Don't know how many seasons that was. I think it's 2 or 3. But anyway, I will see you guys later. Take care.